Welcome back, everyone. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos. And today I have a special guest in Michael Sisco. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, Mr. David Patrick.
Thanks. Yeah, no problem, man. We've kind of been passing by each other. I know you were working on Lauren Witzke's campaign when we had a discussion online. So right now, before we get
You were
going,
actually part of a.
go ahead.
I was saying you took part in a very special moment in which I knew that the hammer was about to drop on a story on me. You were like, "Hey, this is about to happen," and it happened while you were streaming with Lawrence. That's funny.
Right. No, that was really coincidental timing, and that was probably a couple months ago, and so that's how I was introduced to you by a fellow ortho bro and gentleman. Well, the Germanic pronunciation is Eugen, but it looks like Eugen online, and he has been very helpful to me. He's been a good friend, and so he's the one that kind of connected me with you and Lauren Witzke, and then we've kind of been going back and forth since then. So, what are you up to now?
So right now, the big focus is my website, saintsedwardmedia.com. It's been kind of what I've been putting most of my efforts, directing most of my energy on since I left the Witzke campaign. And I start a new show tonight, the very humbly named The Michael Sisco Show at 9 p.m. Right here on YouTube, DLive, Twitter, everywhere, Facebook too.
And so, what do you plan on getting into in the new YouTube channel?
So the main kind of, my spear is basically how do I apply my Orthodox beliefs politically, but with more of an emphasis on it's becoming kind of more and more likely that an electoral solution may not be working. That might not be our future with the way that things appear to be going in our culture and our political reality. So I just want to explore ways that ourselves as Orthodox and even working together with some other traditionalists, Roman Catholics, etc. How can we really preserve our way of life? How can we navigate these crazy times as traditionalists and just preserve that going forward?
Right. Yeah, well, that's part of what I was wanting to get into with you today, is regards to some of your political beliefs, maybe the journey you've gone on. Did you grow up Orthodox?
No, I actually grew up Pentecostal. Lost my way in college and in my early 20s, and then 6 years ago I became Orthodox after losing everything. I was married pretty young. Went through a divorce. I was deployed. My ex cheated on me. The normal, far too common military story. But it was kind of good because it sometimes it takes getting knocked off of your pedestal, losing everything you have, to kind of reevaluate things, and that set me on my journey, truth-seeking journey, and that's eventually discovered Orthodoxy and kind of got back on the right foot again.
Right. So you were into a more phenomenological form of Christianity, a more experiential based and Pentecostalism. So what age did you say you got out of that or started to question theology and all that?
Let's see. So probably about 20, actually coming out of college, maybe shortly after I got married pretty young, around 21, I actually got into the occult, and I became a Freemason myself, kind of like Brother Augustine. So yeah, I wandered around occultism. I even dabbled in Islam at one point, and then back to occultism. So I was in the occult stuff, and then I got into like Sufi Islam, and then back to kind of Western occultism, and yeah. That's
Yeah.
something I haven't dove into this part of my life. I've kind of put it on a shelf in my head and forgot about it for so long. It's hard to even recall.
Right. So, how old are you?
I am 32.
32. Okay. Well, I'll
as
be
the Zoom.
31 in September. So, we're in the same
Oh
ballpark.
man, we're old.
I know, right?
That's why we were having so many tech issues getting the show started.
I know. I think I'm going to have to do something with my computer. It's acting crazy. I don't know what's going on. But um so it sounds like you were kind of wrapped up in the sort of mysticism, which would make sense from my perspective, given your Pentecostal roots, that you would be interested in more mystical forms of religion. And so getting into occultism or Sufism, all these things, this is just, various flavors of mystical experience and stuff like that. So did you ever wander into the sort of psychedelic scene?
No, no, I was when I was in. By the time I was into the occult stuff, it was more like esoteric philosophy. I did get a little bit into like I got into the Rosicrucian stuff and all the stuff the kind of rabbit holes that attract intellectual people because I was always like trying to find the next chasing down the secret words and all secret knowledge. I was pretty gnostic to be honest. It was and I actually was conscious of that too at one point, like Christian Gnosticism. This is great. The the knowledge only for the initiates. I was
Right.
into that sort of thing.
Right. A form of
The
illuminism.
ancient mystery school.
Yeah, exactly. So I can definitely relate. I very much was interested in all that stuff, and that's why I spent quite a bit of time actually reading Gnostic scriptures, getting into Gnosticism, and sort of that allure of esoteric, secretive knowledge that empowers oneself, illuminates oneself. I think that's really attractive in the sort of spiritual scene, and that's why it attracts so many young men. And it's a very heady world as well. It's a very intellectual world. So it seems like it appears there's more substance for those who are less sophisticated with this stuff when they enter into the sort of perennialistic mysticism and stuff like that. At least in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's also very it feeds your ego.
Yeah.
It's all centered around your own individual will,
Yeah.
which I'm not exactly. I can't even like remember the exact point that light bulb switch. That wait, I have this backwards. um, but at some point it did. I mean, I did when I was serving in Egypt. I think part of what kind of broke that down was I did have a chance to visit the Holy Land. I went to the Holy Sepulchre,
Oh, nice.
and this was back in 2011. So it was at a point where I was kind of on my way out of that stuff, but I wasn't quite sure what I was doing. I was like, I think I want to be Christian. And I was reading the scriptures, and that was kind of drawing me back to Christianity. It was like a reacquaintance with the New Testament,
Mm-hmm.
the Gospel of Matthew specifically. I'm not sure exactly what it was about that one over the others that kind of drew me back, but I got to see the Holy Sepulchre. I went in the tomb, and there was something about that was like, holy crap! Like you can. I don't know if you've had a chance to go, but I probably shouldn't use those words describing this. But there was like a tangible, like you could almost feel the holiness like in the air, like it was almost tangible.
Mm-hmm.
And I even was compelled to venerate like the stone that Christ's body was prepared on. Like I could just, I had no idea what I was doing, but I was doing it. I venerated the cross at the on Golgotha.
Nice.
And but I didn't really, when I left there, I didn't really know what I just saw. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
And then fast forward a couple years, you know, my life breaks down when I get back home. Wife cheats on me, leaves me.
Hey,
and I go through this.
Hey, Michael, your audio is cutting in and out. Do you mind maybe trying to turn off the video? That may help the audio quality. We can at least just try for a second. Sorry, it was just it was right when you were getting ready to come back home from the military, where it started cut in and out.
Let's see.
Well, you sound good right there.
I haven't quite gotten. Oh, do I? It's probably just internet connection.
All right, well, go ahead. So you were you venerated in the Holy Land, and now you're coming home from the military, and you find the very unenvious position of finding your wife cheating on you.
Yeah, well, she ended up marrying the guy, and they're divorced now too. So that kind of helped me in my little. But maybe it wasn't me, but anyways, yeah. Let's see. So yeah, when I got back, I went through that turmoil whirlwind, and I actually found my way into the Mormon church for a little bit.
Whoa, well,
as part of
get yourself the magic underwear, huh?
Well, no, I didn't go that far. I didn't stay that long.
Okay.
It was actually a cute girl that kind of got me into it. So, but before that, I have to actually thank them a little bit, because I never had the idea of there being a one true church, because coming from a Pentecostal background, it was kind of like an umbrella idea.
Right.
The church, it's all Christians, right?
Right.
And the Mormons view themselves as the restored church. And I read their entire scriptures. I read the Book of Mormon, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then I get to the Pearl of Great Price, and I get to the point where I'm like, well, you know what? I think there is a true church, but it's not these guys.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I decided, I was like, let me study early church history and see if I can find these people. And so I did that, and that's how I discovered Orthodoxy. And I get to the schism. I'm like, all right, I have to pick a side here. And so I emailed, like, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to email the Catholic priest, the local Catholic priest. I'm going to email the local Orthodox priest. And only the Orthodox one responded. And he invited me to Vespers. And I went to meet him. I didn't actually end up going to Vespers. I went to liturgy the next day. And then it was like flashback to the Holy Land, so being at the Holy Sepulchre. Like, this is everything that I saw and everything that I felt. So it was kind of a combination of actual research before I ever went, and then the experience of liturgy kind of affirming but this is, I knew going in, like, I just knew. I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be, and I'm never leaving.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It absolutely makes sense. And for me, getting into Orthodoxy was a similar sort of investigation and trying to figure out the origin of a lot of the stuff you're talking about, getting into the early church fathers, the early, historical understanding, finding out about the schism. And for me, it was like the complexity of this concept of logos and how that related at a theological level. It just, once I saw that, it's like moving further and further into it, and then you just get this deep richness. This is something that Dyer and I were just talking about on his channel. We just did the second half of a video for his viewership, and we were talking about the sort of depth Orthodoxy has, is that when you keep, you get into it, you keep learning, and it just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and you see the more and more connections when you learn more and more theology. It's not like you finally come to a place and you're like, okay, I got it all figured out now. That there's this really beautiful coherency to it, that it's so rich and so deep.
Yeah, and it in a way, it's kind of like for guys like us that kind of got into that whole like trap of occultism stuff and like going through those bunny holes. Orthodoxy kind of fulfills that in a way because we have all these endless. We're not for lack of intellectual stuff to dive into. So
No, definitely not. And yeah, there's so much complexity to it, and the aesthetics. So that's one of the things with mysticism. I've mentioned this previously on my channel in regards to Protestantism, generally speaking, was actually suppressing a lot of the aesthetic and the mystical qualities in Catholicism in favor of more austere forms like a Calvinism. And so when we look at then Protestant megachurches inside arenas, or just generally speaking, their church structures, their architecture, it isn't as innate or beautiful as the Orthodox or the Catholics. And so when that happened in the Reformation in 1517, then we get the beginnings of what you were talking about, occultism, Western esotericism. And so everybody was finding their mysticism over there. And so, again, it is a great discovery for the Western man because a lot of Protestantism doesn't have the mysticism. It's really a sort of worship of Enlightenment reason kind of thing. So when we find Orthodoxy, we find something that's very logical, something that's very deep and complex, but it also has deep mysticism and beauty and aesthetics. And, it's the whole kit and caboodle, if you will.
also the fullness of truth, which
Right.
that's nice.
Yeah. Exactly, which is the center of it, and why then it resonates at so many different levels is because it is true. And so then therefore all these other things are also reflections of that sort of truth, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like it makes so much more sense. Like Hezekiah, like oh
Right.
wait, so we're not unifying with God's essence. We're it's the energies, just the gaps of it is true humility that gets us to where we want to be, not my own manipulating my own things for my own will, or I'm not God capital G. We're becoming like God's lower G. So there's just those little nuances that make all the difference,
Absolutely.
things that are twisted in the other traditions.
Absolutely. So let's move into how you actually begin to get into politics. So, from my understanding, Lauren Witzke's campaign was not the first campaign that you've worked on, and so can you kind of talk about where, or when in your life you got into politics, kind of your experience within it, and maybe where you were when the Trump phenomenon of 2016 happened?
Okay. Well, I was actually I was hardcore. So let's see. Believe it or not, before I became Orthodox, I was actually a lib. I mean, growing up, I was a neocon kind of guy. Like I loved George Bush. I joined the military to go to. I was like, I want to go to Iraq, and I want to, And I was infantry, so it's kind of crazy. But then when I was getting into all the crazy, like there was a parallel, which obvious. When I was getting into the occultism, I was also getting to like Marxism too. Like strange coincidence, right?
Right.
And then Orthodoxy. When I became Orthodox, suddenly I was like, I like this monarchy thing. So studying Byzantine history was kind of a red pill, actually. I started to appreciate hierarchy, and
Right.
so I dove into like political theory. And for a while, I didn't actually. I was more of a consumer of this stuff from like 2014 to 2016. I didn't actually put anything out there. I was just kind of consuming political theory, studying, reading history. I got into Mencius Moldbug. That was like my first foray into dissident politics, I guess. And when the Trump phenomenon was happening, I wasn't really into democracy that much to even really be excited about what was happening. Obviously, I was excited that he won, and I viewed it as a very good thing, but I was not all wrapped up into the campaign, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in 2017, I started doing a little bit of YouTube stuff. like I was doing some videos, kind of on Molebug actually. And in 2018, I started a podcast called Hearth and Fire. And that's really what got me into real politics. Even though I was still doing political theory and I was bringing on really weird right-wing people onto my show. um, that's where I met. I even brought my brother Augustine. Back then he was just Michael Witkoff. I had E. Michael Jones on. And that's how I met Lauren. I interviewed her. And I actually kind of wanted to trash her from a right-wing perspective. Like, I was just going to destroy her.
Because she's a woman in politics?
And, yeah, like I was going to, because, I was frustrated with Trump at the time with, a lot of the foreign policy stuff. Yeah. I think it was right when I was bringing her on, it was like right after the missile thing in Syria. So I was pretty mad. Like, I'm going to destroy her. But I brought her into the studio. And so then I had to like face her face to face, and suddenly she starts telling her story about like her past in drugs and like her recovery, and how Trump put her out of that. And I was like, holy crap! Like I can't. So my plan to destroy her was totally thrown off by her like background and her story.
Right.
And so we obviously became close. We became pretty close after that, and she got hired by the Trump campaign. So I was like, you know what? I don't have anything really keeping me here. If you want me to come help you, I'll come help you out in Iowa. So I became her team leader. And that was really my first, I was in charge of her volunteers. That was kind of my first diving into practical electoral politics. But, I felt that it was important because after playing all these, I guess mental games of political theory, it's like when I started to look at, what's actually happening with demographic replacement. Like, oh wait, I don't have time for a long game here because we're actively being destroyed. Right. Like unless I do something through the electoral system that we actually have, we don't have a chance to fix this for any of my other fancy ideas later. So I started working on her. I was helping her out, and I was giving speeches at like the MAGA meetings and MAGA meetups. And this gentleman by the name of Bobby Schilling, he was running for Congress out there. He was really impressed with what I was doing, so he hired me. He met me, he hired me. I became his political director, mostly in charge of his ground game. And that's, I guess, where my notorious event happened. We were having there was an immigration forum posted by the Scott County Teenage Republicans. And I kind of orchestrated Nick Fuentes to speak at this event. Okay. And due to my, of course, he spoke. He was well received. My candidate showed up, as did his primary opponent. I did not warn him that Nick Fuentes would be there. And so when the media hailstorm comes down the next day, I get fired for over a tweet. I retweeted Nick Fuentes at some point. This was right after the famous Groyper Wars. Okay. So I was fired over this tweet. So I was like, all right, I'll just go ahead and take all the credit for, inviting Nick Fuentes. So I went to the media. The teenagers are getting a lot of heat. And so I was just like, let me take the heat off the teenagers and take all the credit for this. And so I ended up making the front page of the paper in Iowa. The Quad City Times. So Schilling staffer invites Fuentes. So that was me. I only worked on his campaign for like 2 months. But I did get a crash course in how to run a congressional campaign. And so Lauren ended up getting let go because of being associated with me. Um, so I was like, hey, let's run for U.S. Senate. Why don't you run for Senate in Delaware? And so she did, and I ran her campaign for the first 6 months, and then after building a fine, smoothly oiled machine, moved on to other things. So here I am.
Gotcha. So, what would be your general assessment then of what we see going on in regards to the political landscape in this country, at least the domestic situation, which, in my eyes, obviously, we are dealing with a sort of Marxist movement. I've talked about it at a more intellectual level. It has to do with the phallogocentrism of a Christian civilization as really being the primary target, whether people are conscientious of it or not. But that's what's being described with the patriarchy, the white male, the Christianity, all that stuff. But what's your general take and assessment of what you're seeing out there?
I mean, my general, just off the cuff, to me, it's we're probably in 1914 Russia right now. So I don't think we're quite the 1917 yet, or 1918. But I think we're right. We're pushing or knocking on the door, and I think a lot of it has to. Of course, it's not really the tankies. It's more like cultural Marxism type thing. It's not exactly the same as the early 20th century, but I don't think it'll be good for. I don't think there's any room for people like you and I, to be frank. And I'm getting less and less convinced that there's that campaigns like what Lauren's doing over there. I'm getting less and less convinced that that's actually going to work. But a lot of it really is contingent on what happens in with the presidential election this year, what happens with the senatorial majority, and in the midterms, the coming midterms after that. We'll and frankly, the backlash of if Trump wins, what is that? How violent is that backlash this time? So to be honest, I don't know. I know what's happening. I know it's a revolution. It's a Marxist revolution in some sort of form. I don't know, and I know that they've had over a decade of organization culminating into where they are now. And so I don't know that we have. I don't know if we're too late. I don't know if we have time to really kind of counter that, because the established normal conservatives, mainstream conservatism has really just blown it off for too long, and they still do nothing but appease these people. So yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I think the moral thing to do would be, because as Christians, our default position should always be to respect the authorities, right? The civic authorities. We should always try and operate within the framework of that system. We should not be revolutionaries. So I think the moral thing to do is to try, but to prepare to kind of incorporate a Benedictine option of sorts, kind of like what Rod Dreher goes through, but not as cowardly. So to figure that out, we have to prepare for the worst, but try and operate within the system that we have.
Right.
Make sense?
No, I absolutely agree, and it seems like to me I'm much less hopeful, but at the same time very hopeful, because I'm less hopeless in regards to sort of fixing this situation within institutions. I see personally, this is the biggest distinction between baby boomers and then Xers, millennials, and Zers, is your faith in institutions. Is that the boomer ideology right now still believes that somehow voting for Trump, and not that it won't slow the process, but what you're fighting against, it has inevitably already won. And so any sort of institutional formation isn't going to work, whether that's in politics, whether that's in corporations. The Fortune 500, we already see with the BLM that they're they're antagonistic to everything we actually believe. So I see this as really a face-off, if you will. But I'm very hopeful in regards to more homesteading. I think homesteading's the future. I think the homesteading, homeschooling, living more traditional lifestyles as Christians, it's a win-win. It's a win in terms of quality of life. It's a win in being more biblical. It's a win in regards to not having to submit to authority, because I see things coming, at least in my opinion, with these immunity shots that are on their way. You know, I fully expect to never be able to go onto a airplane again unless there's some, something comes up, something changes. But on the trajectory that I'm seeing, I basically come to the conclusion that I am not getting whatever is coming, and so there's probably no way I'll be able to fly internationally. So many places in Europe and Eastern Europe, particularly, that I wanted to go, that I very may well never be able to go again without again submitting to the sort of secular authority. So I'm hopeful that I think more and more people, it just seems like, generally speaking, when I talk to people, this whole thing has woken sort of more normie people up. So people that were, to the right of center, but more normie, that they also are seeing the homesteading thing. That really the whole name of the game is a spiritual war, and it's all about responsibility. So taking on more responsibility on yourself equals more freedom. Jocko Willink says discipline equals freedom, and so more responsibility in regards to your land, your animals, your food, your family. Everything's more dependent on you, as opposed to the system, is a source of freedom, even though it's going to be more work. That's kind of my general take. So I'm very hopeless in institutional change. I think that, hopefully Trump wins. I mean, and this is a good question for you to get your opinion on. I'm very skeptical that Trump himself, can win this coming election. In a regular election, I think he probably would. But given what we're seeing with the mail-in ballots, in my opinion, it seems like they're just setting it up for rigged elections. He claims they're rigged. Then they start yelling that he's a tyrant and he wants to be a dictator and this or that. And so it's going to just fuel more of a sort of civil war-esque strife in the country, if you will. So, and then it's all going to be blamed on him. So I don't see a real strong winning situation for Trump unless somehow he got voter ID or something serious on the books, which it's not going to happen. So what's your general opinion on him even being able to win this election, which, again, I think we both agree is more just a slowing of the process? I know Brother Augustine mentioned we either got 4 months or 4 years. I agree with that analysis. I concur with that really the electing of Trump is sort of a slowing of an inevitability. But what
I
is?
think we need those 4 years.
Oh, I agree. We absolutely do. But what do you think that he really has a chance, given what we're seeing with the mail-in ballots? I really question how he can win, especially if Texas goes into mail-in ballots or something like that. Like, it's over.
Yeah, so I actually think that, well, I get the mail-in ballot thing, and I think he's going to, I get the mail-in ballot concerns, but at the same time, we do actually literally have these crazy people in the streets burning our cities. Sure. And I do think the polls are indicating that people are starting to wake up to that too. I think the last poll, 67% of Americans now oppose BLM. So do you really think that they don't see the connection between BLM and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? So I think there is an electoral path to victory for Donald Trump.
But how?
Like we couldn't have asked for.
So agree that maybe BLM's favorability has declined. If the electoral process in various states, which we're already seeing a move towards mail-in ballots, whether a bunch of people support Trump or not doesn't matter, because the whole thing will be rigged, don't you think?
Well, here's the thing. So each state So one good thing about the way that that elections are in the United States is every state has its own system.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
There is no nationalized voting system, so the states just send in their results.
Yep.
It would take an enormous collaborated effort that I really don't think the Democrats are competent enough to actually do that much voter fraud in 50 states and the key.
They don't need 50 states.
They would have to hit the key states, the flip states, but I just don't.
So you only need a few. They only need a couple. I mean, Trump barely beat Hillary Clinton, and so maybe his favorability is higher now. But still, I mean, again, if he loses Texas, New York, California, big electoral votes, Florida, exactly. So Florida, and then you got the Wisconsin, the Michigan. Like, I wouldn't be surprised Michigan goes to mail-in ballots. I wouldn't be surprised if Wisconsin goes to mail-in ballots. And then that's really going to be difficult then, because they don't need to. It's not this. It doesn't have to be in every state. They don't need Indiana. Indiana's way right, or Republican. So, there's just selective states that already have Democrat governors that I think there's a real concern if he can even win, and that's where. It just seems like, even with the Texas interest, it just seems like Trump is more of just a symbol of something and less of the force that people portray him as. Yeah. Which is we needed it. Yeah, I mean, because he's helped move the Overton window back to the right, or at least slow it down, because it was moving so radically to the left, and it still is. I mean, look at what Twitter's doing in tech censorship. But I'm just concerned that too many people think that, we're just going to play by the rules, and that this COVID, this whole COVID thing is, to me, centralized planning. I prefer to call it a plandemic, but.
Well, it's definitely not in the bag. The election's not in the bag for sure. Yeah. But I do still think Trump pulls it out. Yeah. But I don't think that saves us. That doesn't save us.
Well, I hope you're right.
And like Witkoff said.
Right. No, I hope you're right. Because I need that 4 years to make enough money so I can buy the land so I can build on. I'm not.
Here's the thing: we need the homesteading idea. It's great, but I don't really think that these leftists are gonna let us be like the Amish, man. They're not gonna leave us alone.
I don't see how they couldn't.
I do. They will come and slaughter us.
Well, they would.
That's just how
with the military.
They have this mentality that we.
Using the military?
Not even just their mobs, man. Their mobs. Right. They will come to. They have this mentality because they're Puritanists, really. Right. when you think about it.
Sure.
All they are is the old Puritanists from the Northeast that have inverted their ideology to progressivism instead of Puritanism.
Right.
And so they won't stop until we are like them. And so that's just I don't think we can go live off in the pasture and without some sort of organization and protection.
Sure.
And so that's why I think we need our 4 years, so that because if we just are they're not going to give us the freedom to just that without some sort of enforcement from ourselves. For we will have to be highly organized.
Sure.
We will need to kind of this is what we're doing without you. But the nice thing about this is we literally have historical precedence for what's going to happen and what's happening, which is 20th century Russia, basically. That's happening here. So why would we? And it's becoming obvious. We should have seen it 10 years ago, but nobody took it serious because it seemed like this really fringe thing. And now it's mainstream because they were able to take over our universities and our school systems. The school boards, local school boards,
sure,
are riddled with Marxists and LGBTQ activists.
Yeah.
And we let this happen because we didn't take it seriously. And here we are.
Yeah.
But understanding the pathology of the left, the brand of leftism that we're dealing with, I don't think we can just like, oh, we're gonna homeschool our kids and we're gonna homestead. I just don't think it's gonna work out that way.
Well, I think that's maybe a mischaracterization of what I'm talking about. So when you're talking about
It
a
could
sort
be.
of
I don't necessarily.
when you're talking about a coordinated force, I mean, look at the Liberty Movement or the people that are protesting against the lockdown. That's not a centralized force like BLM or Antifa. And so the way you're talking, I think, is totally, I see a natural cohesion in regards to these value systems. I mean, people can fly a Trump 2020 flag, and that's a sort of rallying cry in regards to a sort of collective identity. So we've already seen people beginning to form groups, and that if any mob was going to a rural area, like again, these people aren't that competent. They're mostly incompetent, and so the nature of evil is self-defeating, that it eats its own. And so I see the cities much like the Hunger Games, but I don't see, what scares me is the lack of pushback. So the only thing that I would see an envisionment of what you're talking about, sort of a mass incarceration of rural people, is if the military got involved. And so it's people resisting. That's why the mask thing, when I see people with masks on, um, that's one, sad, makes no sense. But then the acquiescence to secular power.
Man,
What's that?
I think like groups like Antifa and BLM are way more organized than we're giving them credit for.
That's my point. That's my point. That's my point.
Yeah.
Exactly. They are way more organized.
So, I think this was. Yeah, and the right, unfortunately, is completely disorganized, and we still have rabid infighting. And so, how are we?
Because we're not gonna fight them as the right, because that paradigm is already broken. So we're not fighting the left because we're the right.
I agree. So,
we're going to defend family, God, and honor, and we're going to, through the internet, through social media, through Gab, through, again, what Owen Benjamin's doing with Bertaria, that we create our own coalitions of people. I mean, for example, what the Bears are doing, you may not like Owen Benjamin or some of the stuff he's talking about, but they already have an organized force where they can deploy, do this or that. It may be spread out and sparse at this point in regards to a sort of national scale. But, but that's what I'm doing with this YouTube channel. This is a sort of centralizing force of people with similar values. So same thing with Jay Dyer, same thing with Roosh V. So to me, it's already happening in regards to a sort of oppositional voice and forming of value systems. And so the next thing is really just for us to build. I don't see, I see the difference between destruction and building. And so I don't disagree that a civil war may be on the way, but I don't see the adversaries as particularly competent. Outside of the organizers, the people who are forming the groups, the fundings, the multi-billionaires, the global think tanks.
People in the streets are not.
No, they're
ones.
Exactly. And so you just see, like, I've seen videos of like a couple guys, who are actually willing to fight, walk around with against Antifa, Black Lives Matter. I mean, and take on 9 people at a time. And it shows that, to me, this is, again, if we're going to get more conspiratorial, this is all a deeper level of those that have been affected by the programming of television series. And so television, we could even go into Montauk, CIA stuff, MK Ultra. But when I look at the people out in the streets, these people aren't autonomous. And unfortunately that they are programmed. That's why the NPC meme I thought was so effective. But who knows? Again, we're speculating about the future. I think
seen that in a while.
I think that a civil war very much is possible, but I wonder how much it's going to be, like a serious, like, third world civil war skirmish, and more like, sort of dividing up. At one point, a sort of balkanization, and because I see a lot of, at least where I am in Indiana, the sheriff's department, the military, they're all on the side that I would perceive myself being on. So I don't see, like somebody gets in power and then all of a sudden the whole thing's used against us. I see a lot of people that, actually resonate. They may not be able to talk about it at the same perspective or the same level, but they sense what's going on, and they're going to defend their families. And that's why it really comes down to me, just Christian values versus non-Christian values, whether they're identified as a Christian or not. That's going to be the dividing line.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. No, I think that we need to be very what's the word? Purposeful with, you know, preserving our, as traditionalist Christians. I think we need to be very purposeful in preserving our own interests and doing of course we need to keep doing what you and Jay Dyer and myself are doing, but what we do need to, I think, kind of get together in real life too and start actually planning contingencies, and we need to get in depth with this, because even if let's say we do that and it all turns out to be unnecessary, well, who cares, right?
Sure.
And we formed a real cohesive brotherhood and bond, and that's worth something in and of itself. So we got to keep doing it, and I think we need to be extremely purposeful with it, and maybe do some I'd like to see some in real life stuff. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, well, that's why I've advocated for, and that's what we're doing at my parish, is beginning men's groups. So all the men, men only groups where we go and, whether it go to the driving range or have a whiskey and smoke a cigar and talk about theology, but basically finding events in which it's only men, so men exclusive groups. And then so training, I've already talked with a couple of Orthodox guys, and that's what they're doing at their parishes. One guy was down outside New Orleans. And so when the craziness out there is that the men from the parish, they'd go take their ARs and their pistols, go to the range and practice. And so I think that is the way forward. Again, is to use the structure of the church and working through the church as a way to begin to organize. Because I think once you get outside the protection of the church, it's going to be difficult, especially if you actually do have an opposition power in the political hot seat that could destroy you very easily.
It's going to take a real high level of boldness for anybody in any position of power to turn against the church. It's going to have to take some
right, and that's why I think it's a win for men. Even if you're not Orthodox, again, I would recommend you becoming Orthodox. But if you're not, I think every church has to have a men's group, an only men's group, and you go do activities out in the world. So I've met with Orthodox guys here in the Indianapolis area, and they've reached out to me and wanting to join when we start going to the ranges and stuff, that they can come with. And so that, to me, you get 20, 30, 40 guys that, meet maybe once every 2 months or something and go do masculine activities, canoeing, camping, go shooting, doing stuff like that. That is something that is drastically missing in American society. But it'd be a way to move in the direction that you're speaking, which I totally agree with, but under the auspices and the protection of the church.
Yeah, I agree. No argument here. That's kind of what I was getting at. But I just think we need to have a little more urgency than we've had, if that makes any sense.
Right. Yeah, I think it's
a
also
more purposeful and a little more urgent.
It's also difficult for people, given wherever they're at in their life. So whether saving up money, a lot of people are hurting financially right now, so it's hard to just pick up and go. Family situations, given my
we need human capital more than anything.
Right.
We just need the organization and the people.
Exactly, in your local area.
That's the first step.
Yep. So where are you located right now?
I am in the communist state of Maryland.
Okay. Do you plan on
outdoor mask mandate?
Oh my God. Do you plan on staying there?
Well, I'm really tired of moving. I've lived in Iowa and Delaware this year, and I came back home when I left the whiskey campaign. So I'm from Maryland. I'm thinking about moving out west at some point, maybe northwest, but for now, I don't have any plans to go anywhere.
Yeah, actually, that connects with the super chat we got by Eugen, Owen, however you want to pronounce his name. Thank you very much, brother. He threw in 20 pounds and said, my 2 favorite ortho bros in one stream. God bless you both. Thanks, Pat, for inviting Michael on. Talk about the Northwest relocation plan. So when you said Northwest, you're thinking about it. That made me think about that because that's where, Owen Benjamin's building Bertaria. Wrangler Star is doing a similar thing out there. And I just heard multiple kind of sources within even the Christian circles I move in talking about building out in the Northwest. And I think that would provide a natural cultural bubble against all this stuff. If you got...
I think it would be a good idea to all get into one, because if we can get critical mass, because, we make up like what, maybe 1% of the country, but if we can get critical mass in one area, I think that would at least, like with local politics and stuff, like if we can get involved in some of the infrastructure locally, I think that would at least, protect ourselves. It would give us some leverage, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
So we all got to move. Idaho, let's all go.
I know, right? No, that's what I can't. I said that I got to be in Indiana for the next few years, given family stuff. But I am open to relocating. I've heard the kind of hot places right now are like West Virginia, Tennessee, Missouri, and then the whole Northwest. And I've heard some people moving to Texas just based on space, but I'm kind of leery of where they're going politically. Not that you can control that. That's why I think
I'm gonna do an event in the spring. I'm trying to put it together with some people, like a traditionalist event, to where we can, have like a forum and an in real life meetup. I don't know where I'm gonna have it yet. I'm looking for a venue, but maybe we can get together and agree on a place. So we can do like the old Zionist councils from the 1800s. So we're like, we're gonna move here. We can get together and we can figure it all out.
Right. Yeah, I think that definitely. I know at my parish, an Orthodox guy who's in a group with I think like 5, 6, 7 different ortho bros, and they've already pooled money together to buy like 100 acres in Missouri, and so that's another way to do it.
I've got some people. Some people in my old parish up here talking about doing the same thing, and they actually have money. I'm trying to push them into some of these other areas outside of Maryland.
Right.
But I just don't see it working out here right next to DC and whatnot. So.
No, definitely not. It's too dense. It's all about population size and where you're at rurally, because it's about creating new population centers. Really, so that's why you want to go somewhere rural, start building, and then have like-minded people building around you. So I see that as the win.
That's perfect. That's the plan. That's the plan. Let's do it.
Yep. Hunter threw in 1999, and he had the Orthodox cross. So thank you very much, brother, for just throwing in and donating. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. And then Sisco's Disco Limited threw in 5 pounds. He said, hey, Sisco's Disco Limited here, just dropping in to salute our boss, Michael. Here's a Roman for you both. And it's a salute.
Okay.
Excellent. So who are you familiar with Sisco's Disco?
No. This is the first I've heard of him.
Oh, really?
Very honored. Very honored.
Oh, it says that you're their boss. Interesting. I thought it may have been your new YouTube channel. Somebody else just throwing in to promote. I don't know. Oh, Pano threw in $2. Yeah. He's a good buddy up in Lafayette. He says St. Pacios said to buy land during this chaos. I couldn't agree more. I just need more money.
Yes. Yep.
One of my buddies just bought a really beautiful plot, a little over 3 acres. Really beautiful in western Indiana. And he dropped like 50 grand. But gosh.
It's all right. If everybody watches my live stream tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, which I got to get going to get ready for, because I got a whole setup for it.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to reveal it on your show. I'm sorry. I didn't want to, bust out the green screen for you. But
the green screen.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in a totally real Victorian library. It's great.
Nice. I have a green screen downstairs that I've yet to unravel. I planned on doing some courses and using green screens to kind of make it much more intense. But yeah, that's a way to make it more professional. So salute to you. I just yell at the
I
world
guess so.
from a
It's good.
corner of a room.
No, it looks good though. You got icons, books. What more do you need?
True.
Mine's fake. Yours is real. Like, who cares?
uh, Oregon threw in $5 more and said, "I have nothing to do with Cisco's Disco Limited at all." Dot dot dot. Eyes. So I think we found our culprit.
Who was it?
It was Eugen Oregon.
Oh.
That's
That guy's
hilarious.
awesome.
So
Love him.
yeah, he's a great guy. So let's see. So I think we hit it on everything. Again, I was trying to wrap it up. No more. We kind of got a late start, so we're only 55 minutes in. But wanted to talk about you getting into politics. Highlighted that, how you got into Orthodoxy, your relationship to Witzke's campaign, your thoughts on the contemporary situation. Oh, we didn't talk about your website. You want to speak about that real quick in regards to what's the game plan with the YouTube channel. So first go into the website, what your goal with that is and everything, and then maybe hit the YouTube channel one more time and promote that before we get off.
Yeah, so it's Saints Edward, so that's with the S after, two saints. I named it after Saint Edward the Confessor and Saint Edward the Martyr, because I had no idea that one of their sainthoods canonization was disputed in the Orthodox Church when I first set it up. But anyways, presumably they were both English kings, both Orthodox, so I thought it was a good way to kind of connect that to my love of the West and Europe. But yeah, it's just a traditionalist news site. We have news and opinion. I'm trying to get more news out there, but right now it's mostly kind of skewed 60-40 opinion. But I felt like there was a lack of our perspective, at least with a type of website like that. I mean, you have Catholic stuff like Church Militant and whatnot,
Right.
but we don't really have like something to fill that void for traditionalists in general. So it's not exclusively Orthodox. There are some of my writers are Roman Catholic, but I'm not letting them. We're not getting into piss matches over religion on my website. But
they're not promoting the filioque, are they?
None of that. No filioque. No. I'm trying to get some priests to write for the religion section. That's kind of lacking.
Yeah,
but we're building. Once I can start paying people more, we can we'll have more consistent content. Right. I can't keep writing at the pace that I'm writing for it. So, but yeah, the YouTube, it's actually the same company. So anytime you super chat me on my YouTube show, which will be Saints Edward Media, it's gonna be on DLive too. DLive / Michael Sisco. It'll also be on my Twitter. You can watch on Twitter and Saints Edward Facebook page. And super chats are going through Entropy because I don't have 1,000 subscribes yet on YouTube. So, but I will have an Entropy link so you can super chat through that. Yeah. Nice. And the point of the YouTube channel is kind of what we talked about today, but of course I like to mix it up and bring some weird people on for entertainment value, of course, every now and then. So it's not going to be the same thing every week. I'll bring some more weird people like I used to do on my podcast.
Nice. So you mentioned that they're the same.
Don't tell them.
You mentioned that it's the same company. So have you already made an LLC and everything?
Yeah, nice. I co-own it. I have a business partner. His name is Eric. He does all my production and stuff.
Oh, geez. Well, that must be nice.
Yeah. Well, I really want to pay my writers, to be honest, before I start paying myself. So whenever you guys support the show, then that'll make Saints Edward media.com better because I can
Right.
start paying them for articles. And you can also support us through the website too. There's donation links at the every article. There's a donation link, so
Right.
PayPal or Patreon.
Well, that's a great project. I was wanting to again. I think we discussed it needed to be like 1,000 words or so.
Yeah.
I forget what you.
Anyway, I'm not.
But
That's a preference. I'm not a stickler.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to write some monstrosity because I'm a bit verbose sometimes. But
Hey, you know what?
I was thinking about it when I get a moment. Again, I'm just so swamped. Just trying to put out content on here regularly, along with regular life, is a challenge. But I was wanting to write an article on like phallogocentrism as a sort of the ultimate aim of the revolution of what they're actually attacking, a sort of academic intellectual perspective and stuff like that. So I've been wanting to write on St. Edward's, and I definitely plan on it. It's just life is chaotic right now. It feels like you never get ahead. It's like whenever you're doing something, it's like you're always trying to chase something that's like right in front of you, and you can't catch up.
Hey, you know what? It's always easier to do something, to make time for something you're getting paid for. So
that is
if
true.
all of your viewers come and like just super chat the heck out of mine and Brother Augustine's stream, then they'll get to see you published on St. Edward's, because I can be like, here's some money, bro.
It does talk, doesn't it? Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else you want to say before telling everybody where they can find you? Feel free.
Follow me on Twitter. I need more Twitter followers. I'm stuck at like 536. I need at least 1,000. It's at Michael Sisco SE on Twitter.
I think we've got you've got some angry employees. Cisco's Disco Limited says, Michael, you're behind on our wages! ! I
wonder who that is.
it's
I've paid everyone that I set up for an article. I've paid, so I did like a week because I got a donation come in. I was like, all right, for this week, $10 an article, and I got
nice.
Nick, see, look, I got a nice donation. I gave it to the writers.
Nick threw in $4.99. He said, "How many acres are you thinking for your future homestead?" So curious what your opinion on that is, and then I'll give my response. Last question, real quick. How many acres are you looking for your future homestead?
100.
What?
100.
Nice. Well, going for the big one. Myself, to be a little bit more real, I would love to have 100 acres. That'd be an ultimate goal. But in regards to what I'm saving up for right now to purchase is somewhere in the range between 3 to 5, probably. And
I think I would do like a group, like a group purchase, and kind of have like 30-40 acres together. I think would be pretty sweet. You think?
Depends on who you're going in with it with. I'm always leery of other people, so I'd prefer to own or be in charge of whatever it is. But my buddy and I, we were actually looking at. There's a really nice 20-acre property over in sort of rural western Indiana, and already had a pole barn and everything on it. And so we were thinking about purchasing the 20 acres and then dividing that up 4.5 acres or so. So that was a thought. So I know I get it that kind of pooling, and that again, that was what the guy at my church is doing with the fellow Ortho Bros in Missouri. That's how they're getting 100 acres. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit too American. I just I want my own property. I want the kids to stay off of it.
I volunteer my services as supreme leader of the property in exchange for not having to pay in. That's what I do.
Yeah. Nick, the guy who asked the question, said I wouldn't buy shit with anyone except your wife. That's drama waiting to happen, and I totally agree. I just being a part of groups before.
the way to go about it would be to have some sort of like an LLC or something with ground rules written out before you go into it.
Right.
Would be to go sit down with a lawyer and actually have a real organization that you're all part of, and you have to dig through every contingency of everything that could possibly go wrong and build that into your agreement.
Right.
I've done this before.
I see.
With,
well,
not with the same thing, but with business.
Well,
I
admire your trust in other people, and your ability to form contracts.
Never burned me at all. Never burned me at all.
That's good. That's really good. So, yeah, but personally, I just want enough for my family, and then we'll go from there once we get settled in. But brother, I appreciate you coming on. Good luck to you and brother Augustine, Michael Witkoff, this evening for a incredible journeying through Ortho Bro conversation, I assume is what we'll be partaking of this evening. Go ahead.
Hey, we're going to be critiquing liberal democracy, fascism, and communism. So we're going to hit them all.
Nice.
Traditional.
You're just gonna give them the monarchy elbow, all three of them across the chin, huh?
Damn. Well, thanks for having me on, man. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, no problem, brother. Again, thanks for coming on. Everybody, Eugen threw in your website and your Twitter and your YouTube. So everybody, check out those links. Make sure to join Michael this evening on his channel, where they're going to be getting into various political ideologies and throwing a little fisticuffs, showing what's up. But appreciate it again, brother. God bless you and your family and everything that you're trying to do and everything you're trying to build. Again, that's what we got to do. I'm all about is building. So congratulations. Good luck with everything. And if anybody is interested and is able, please go to my website at davidpatrickcarey.com, churchoftheeternallogos.com, and click that donate button in the top right-hand corner and set something up. Monthly, we will have half and half content, as Dyer does, that will be coming soon. So the second half of our streams will be over on the website. But if you donate $5 or more, you'll automatically get an account built. So anyways, thank you guys. Love you for all the love and support. And until next